Welcome back to the channel, troops, and if it's your first time here, welcome. I do a lot of fishing videos, mainly considered a piker, but truth is I love fishing and I go all year round for all species. So if you're new to the channel and you fancy sticking around and watching a few videos about fishing, hit that little icon there, that little tench. That's the subscribe button. Don't cost you nothing. It helps the channel grow. Today we're going to be tying the twig rig. I'm going eel fishing after work and I'm going to tie a couple of twig rigs up before I go, and I thought I'd show you how I do it. So without further ado, let's get cracking with these rigs and I'll show you the equipment I'm using. Right, we've got some hook link material. That is 28 pounds soft strand. Don't need crimps with it or anything. You tie knotless knots, all sorts of knots with that, Palomars, everything with that. So that's absolutely fine. I'm also going to use some soft braid for one hook link. Next, going back a bit, that Supernova, that's in 15 pounds. I'm also going to do a mono rig at 25 pounds as well. Now I know eels have teeth and you know they can damage line, but sometimes you need a little bit of finesse, a little bit different. So I'm going to use the soft strand. That'll be my main stuff. I've had piked of 20 pound on that, so I know I'm going to catch land eels on that. The mono again is 25 pound, and obviously when you're using things like that, you've got to have to keep an eye on it. If you catch an eel, double check your rig, make sure it hasn't been damaged by any eel's teeth, otherwise you're going to weaken the integrity of the rig. But other than that, so I'm going to use 3 different materials. Obviously you're going to need your scissors, boons, 150. These are 150 mil long. Now some might say that's a bit of overkill. A lot of people use 100 mil or 120 mil, but you can always cut these down to size with a good pair of scissors, hot knife, anything like that, junior hacksaw. And of course you get the added bonus, you take the bits off the end and you can keep them as running beads. Variety of hooks. I'm going to use one even with a size 10, so I'm going to do a size 10, a size 8 and a size 6. Float stops, a large size, baiting needle. Right, so without further ado, let's show you this twig rig. I'll always have a tape measure in my tackle box. In case my scales are not working, I can always measure the length of the fish. Yeah, with a pair of braid scissors you can cut those tubes to size. So that's 120 mil, that's what I use. You can use your cut off bit, you can put it back, waste not want not, and you'll have a short ledger boon. So cut a piece 12 inches long or so. I always like to cut off a little bit more than I need. You don't want to get there and end up being short. So as I say, you're going to tie your rigs anyhow, any way you want. And this is going to be my rig with a small sprat heads on. So I've got a size 2 Fox curve shank hook. It's a lot bigger than I would normally use. Let's say it's going to have a sprat on the end, so either half a sprat or sprat head or a whole sprat. I've got some very small sprats from the pet shop that are ideal for eels. and this is an ideal size hook for that type of fishing. There's so many knots you can use for your hooks: Palomars, knotless knots, you know, all sorts. But I'm going to go with a knotless knot because they're just so easy, aren't they? Let's face it. I mean, yeah, they really are. So through the eye, tag end, which obviously is going to be cut off anyway. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I always do 8. Don't know why. That's my go-to number. There's your knotless knot. That's done. That hook's tied, secured. It's not going to go anywhere. I don't cut the tag end off until my whole rig's complete, and I use a couple of pulling tools to make sure everything's tight. Well, not that it's going to go anywhere, it's just force of habit. I always leave the tag end, unless I'm doing a carp rig and I need that space and I don't need a tag end there then. But most of the time I'll leave the tag end there till I finish the entire rig. Then what you want to do is get your float stops or your tungsten sinkers. Some people use tungsten sinkers. I use whatever I've got available at the time. At the moment I've got some float stops. The large size ones. So you can use a baiting needle to put them on. I just like to pull them on. And a rule of thumb for me, depending on the hook link material and the size, also depends on the size of the bait you're using. But that's roughly where you want to be. An inch. I'll see what it is. And it's bang on an inch. So that's an inch from the hook. Then you get your tubing, that's your stick, that's your twig. That goes on the end there, up to the float stop. Then you put your final float stop on. And it just pushes down onto your hook link material, whatever it is. Pull it down, tie it up to the other end of your stick, your twig. Keep calling it a stick. Lovely. There you go. Now all of a sudden you've got your hook. And your stick on there, and that's your twig rig done. Then it's virtually you personally deciding how long you want your rig to be. And then you can either tie a swivel onto it or a quick link. There's a swivel. Now, with these, that's the problem with shooting at work. You hear all that noise? Thread a rig sleeve on, rig tubing. You can even use shrink tube, anything you want. I use the rubbers off of lead clips. Doesn't matter where it is, just so it covers your swivel. And the way I tie them is I do a figure of eight loop because I'm course fishing, and I've got my course fishing rucksack with me, I haven't got no hook pulling tools, so metal disgorger, a bait dropper. Bait dropper goes around the hook and you just pull tight. Now I'm going to cut off my tag ends, and once my figure of 8 loop is done, the way I attach that to attach it to a swivel or a quick change link. I prefer swivels. You go through the swivel eye, back over it, and you pull down tight. And here we go with the second hook length. Once again, you just cut off 12 to 15 inches. And there are different ways you can do different knots. And as I said, you can do different knots. So it's a simple whipping knot. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Back through the loop. Moisten the braid. Pull it down gently. That's the same hook, that's the same knot you would use if you was fishing with a spade end hook. Nice whipping knot. That's as solid as anything. Cut off the tag end. As you can see, there's a little bit of a bird here. Little bit of a tag end. I just like to tidy it up. It's just like it wouldn't affect your fishing, but I just like to tidy them up. So again, nice and straightforward. I put that a little bit closer than an inch this time because it's a smaller hook. The other one's quite a big hook for quite a big bait, but that's going to be my worm bait. So the float stop goes on. You notice when you're younger, it's easy to do all these little fiddly things. And once again, it's on. Let's say I could do a figure of 8 loop knot and take it over the swivel, or I could tie it directly onto the swivel. This time I'm going to tie it directly onto the swivel. So you've got different materials, you can do different things. I'm going to do a simple grinner knot. So round 1. So round 7 times. And I said I'd always do 8, but some 6 to 8 is always my average. I've gone through 7 times. Put it through the tag end, moisten it, pull tight. That's that done. All it needs is a tag end cut off. Get my high-tech pulling tool. Make sure everything's tight. When it isn't, look, you can see a gap there. There we go. And we'll try one more. This time with some mono. You don't always have to cut it off. I mean, you could leave whatever hook link material you're using attached. What we're going to do now is we'll try with a slightly curved hook. Just slightly different hook pattern. And again, I'm going to tie a simple whipping knot. Loop the line. Place it on the shank of the hook. You go around once, twice, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's me saying I always do 8, and there's 2 knots in a row. I've done 7. Moisten it down. And pull tight. That's done. They're very reliable knots. That's going nowhere. Tidy it up. Clip it as tight to the knot as you can. That's going nowhere. Decide on what length you want to cut. I'm going to cut it at any length because I can cut it shorter. Now this is slightly a shorter one, and of course straight away want to put your float stop on. Just run the line through the loop provided, fold it over, push down with your float stop onto your main line, pull it through. That's all there is to it. So that will go down. Again, it's a smaller hook, so I'll put it slightly closer than the original one. Tubing goes on your hook link material. Just thread it through. I say some people use solid rods and they attach them with float rubbers, and you would have the line obviously, but I like mine to run through. Second one goes on again, so you just push it down on your main line, pull it through. There's the hook, and it's just a case of you deciding how long you want your rig to be, how long, where you want to put your swivel, or basically just, it's quite long, so I'm going to snip a bit of that off now. Swivels on. Simple grinner knot once, twice, 3, 4, 5. What you do is you put it through the big loop close to the swivel, pull down on your main line, make sure it's moist, Don't want to damage the line tightening it up. You haven't really got to tighten them up, these mono rigs, too much. That's solid as a rock. There's your 3 rigs. Top one will be my sprat rig with just a head or a tail, just a section of, and the other 2 are worm rigs. Made with 3 different materials. The twig rig, it's that easy. Top one is a wire-based material. Second one is braid, and the second rig is made up of a braided material, and the bottom rigs are made up with 25-pound mono. And that's it. That's all there is to tying a twig rig. Easy components. There's your hook. That's going to be my dead bait rig. Two float stops. Section of leisure boom with your hook link material running through it. All attached to a swivel on the end. I say you can use quick link if you want, but I tend to like to tie some rigs on as I'm using them, you know. And that's it. And the way it works is obviously your bait goes on there. When that slides down the corner of the eel's mouth and it tries to swallow, this twig is too long. It can't turn it around and get it down its throat. So you just can't get deep hooked. So that's the idea behind it. It goes in sideways and it can't turn. So that's the twig rig. Hope it was clear. I won't know till I've edited it and see how I've done. But I hope it's clear how you tie them and how easy they are. They really are effective at saving eels' lives, really. You know, they're great at lip hooking them. So give them a try. If you're eel fishing, try and use something that's safe. You don't want all that deep hooking. It's a nightmare. Even even for you, it's a nightmare. It's a nightmare for the fish. But so let's hope they work. So we've got 3 rigs tied up for after work. So I ain't got to bother setting up in the dark and trying to tie rigs. I've got 3 twig rigs already raring to go. Hopefully we'll catch some eels. Thanks for watching, troops. I really do appreciate all the views, all the subscriptions and all the comments. Let me know down below what hook material you use for your twig rigs.